Hello and welcome to episode 28 of Hardcore Gaming 101.net's top 47,858 games of all time podcast, where we objectively, definitively, and scientifically rank the games you nominate on Twitter. My name is Xerxes, and there isn't one thing about ambulatory 8-foot puppet monster I don't like. My panelists today are...
I'm Bobinator.
I'm Caitlin.
And I'm Carl.
And on this podcast, we have 3 rules. Rule number 1, all rankings are final, official, and scientifically accurate. Rule numero dos, you can nominate one game at a time via Twitter by hitting me up at GC9X. Or you can fast-track your nomination by putting it in a 5-star review on iTunes or Stitcher. Rule Roman numeral 3, you can nominate games that have already been nominated, but please don't nominate games that have already been ranked. You want to see which games have been ranked? See for yourself? You can check it out at bit.ly/47kgames. And remember, you want to guarantee that we'll rank your game in the next month. Include that game in a 5-star iTunes or Stitcher review. And I just wanted to introduce you. Heard a new voice here. This is Caitlin Oliver. She is, she pretends like she's a fan of the show. I don't know.
Might. That's so nice.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
I'm a liar.
No, I don't. I think you're a very nice person who wants us to doesn't want us to feel bad.
She's our pity host.
What should I mean, there's all kinds of fascinating things to know about Caitlin. She is one of the world record holders on Splatterhouse. It's more than I have ever accomplished in my life at anything. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was just at Arcade Super Play Expo. We raised $47,000 for Save the Children at Twitch.
That is incredible. That is really more than I've ever accomplished. Okay, next game we're talking about is Maniac Mansion, which was nominated by @TheChaos and Mr. Frost XD on iTunes. It was published and developed by Lucasfilm Games back before they were LucasArts, I take it. It was first published for the Commodore 64. Earliest known release date and territory is October 5th, 1987 in North America. And this is the LucasArts. It was actually the first, game, right?
The first self-published product from Lucasfilm.
It was not their first adventure game, but it is probably the one that people consider to be like their big debut, really.
It's not their first?
Because
you could play the Labyrinth video game.
Was there like a mode to Ball Blazer I wasn't aware of?
No, they
did an adaptation of David Bowie's film Labyrinth.
Yes, but they didn't publish that one. Is where we're going with this. Mm-hmm. They just made that for hire. But it is that game itself, Labyrinth, is it pioneers a lot of things as well. So Maniac Mansion's kind of not exactly like a part 2, but it's very much an extension of like, let's stop adventure games being horrible to use text phaser interfaces, and let's make it actually like kind of playable in a sense. And both of these games tried to do that, and Maniac Mansion is the next step along.
Well, yeah, it's why Gilbert started developing Scum Engine. Because he wanted to make
Gilbert, right?
Yeah, Ron Gilbert.
And this was the birth of the Scum engine, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think this was the first adventure game with an icon-based interface. I bet if you looked, you'd probably find something like the ZX Spectrum or something. But it is like the first graphical adventure game that actually uses a verb interface, so that's something pretty new and exciting.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but is it also it has like a vaguely real-time-ish element to it? That's what I remember about it. Like not real time, but like things will happen while you're walking around. Like there's stuff that happens on a certain schedule.
Right, yeah. Sometimes during gameplay, you'll get little cutscenes where one of the family members of the mansion you're currently invading or say, hey, I'm hungry, I'm going to go get a snack, and then they go to the kitchen and get a snack. And it's possible you run into them, and you don't want to do that.
No, you want to avoid the family at all costs for the most part.
We should probably talk about the story of this game on that note.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah, set the game up before we describe the game in detail.
Well, the game was based on Creepshow, the Comet story. Since Dr. Fred, who is the head of the Edison family, is being controlled, acting as an evil scientist who trying to do bad things, and you gotta save your friends.
But your friends start out like, is there one friend who's been kidnapped, and then you've got like...
Yeah, it's the girlfriend Wendy has been kidnapped.
Man,
or is otherwise being held hostage in the Edison mansion.
So like Tuxedo Dude, Surf Dude, Jambox Dude. I can't remember all the characters.
Right. The thing is, you have one character you're always stuck with, Dave, who's kind of boring, doesn't really do anything.
There's a good reason
But
you're stuck with him.
Awesome music. Dave's theme is awesome.
True. If you're playing the NES version, every character has their own unique song, and some of them are pretty great.
Some of them are not
that's
pretty
why-
great. Some of them are really tedious, so watch out.
Let's talk about the couple of things that suck about Maniac Mansion. How about that?
All right. I like talking about things that suck. No, but yeah. So you got your cast of characters. I don't know all the characters off by heart, so someone else help me out.
I told you, Tuxedo Dude.
Bernard, Razor. Oh God, Bernard, Razor, Dave.
There's Bernard the nerd, who's good at fixing things. There's
Who is
Jeff,
also in Day of the Tentacle, the sequel.
There's Jeff the surfer, who does like nothing except be able to fix a thumb you can find.
Jeff is useless.
Jeff's like the character, I think you could pick and then be like, this game is horrible, I can't do anything, what's going on? Like, he's like a trap character that you end up with and you're just like, what? What the?
Yeah.
I do
Jeff.
appreciate how like different characters, a different team you pick kind of affects your difficulty. Like, if you pick Bernard, things are a lot easier because he can basically do anything.
I mean, he can do anything, but can he do music? Because I think it's he can't do music, but he can do pretty much everything else. And you already have Dave, who can Dave do music? I'm really confused
I don't think
about.
Dave. You need either a Razor, who's a musician, and there's another musician I forget the name of. Sid.
Yeah.
Right. Her name's Sid.
Oh, is that a reference to the Sid chip?
I don't know.
I thought it was a
Maybe
reference
not.
to Sid Vicious, because why not?
Well, Sid Vicious was a lot of things, but he was not a musician. Burn!
Yeah, the one Sid Vicious fan we have is gonna just trash us now. From this
Sid
point
Vicious
on.
was a genius. The way he'd
broke things on stage.
pass out on stage. Yeah, it was awesome.
But
And finally, there is a
Yeah.
Wendy who can write.
I don't like Wendy's theme. I picked Wendy and I was like, oh, I don't like this theme at all. I was playing the NES version. Although we were playing the NES version, at least myself and Bob were playing NES via the Scum V interface, the PC one.
Right. If you're playing this game, I'd say like that's the best way to play because then you have mouse control, and that makes it a lot nicer overall.
But there's a bunch of versions of this game.
There's 2 NES versions, I believe, right? There was was there one that was done by JVC, I think, in Japan? Or am I misremembering?
Did they discreetly come in and remove one of the infamous
it is
scenes?
a different port.
Oh, did that? Because obviously there's the famous hamster scene which didn't get censored for some reason. Did that get taken out of later cart pressings, or is that in all of them?
I think that's a rumor.
Oh, okay. So let's talk about the most important part of this game, I think, which is the way the interface works, because that's kind of like the big new Maniac Mansion, like the thing that sets us apart from everyone that's kind of before it, which is what you pull. Like, you just have a list of commands that you can perform, and a bunch of them feel really redundant, but you can basically tell your character to open something or close something, read something, whatever. It's a big list of things that you can choose, and you get to pick all of them at once, which really simplifies down the guesswork, because you can click things on screen, obviously. So instead of like the old King's Quest games where you had to kind of try and work out what Roberta Williams thought something on the screen was supposed to be, and then type what you think you have to do with it. Instead, everything is really clear, and you can make a lot of sense in this game. Any spot in the game that you can interact with, I'm pretty sure if you hover over it, it will tell you what that is. So there's an element of pixel hunting, but not too much, because it generally will let you know.
That sounds like a minor. Yeah, that sounds like a minor feature. That's a big deal at the time.
I do
That's
appreciate
a huge deal.
There's basically a command that you can click on to identify anything you move the cursor over. Sometimes that's really useful to have.
Yes.
They really tried to simplify how difficult and mind-numbing old adventure games can be. As much as I love them, there was definitely a much higher difficulty curve just to basic use.
I mean, so this was, I believe this is a credit to Ron Gilbert, right? Like, he really disliked older systems, so he kind of wanted to gut them and make a system that was playable.
Well, Chip Morningstar did the base code for the engine, who was a different Lucasfilm employee, but Gilbert built on that massively.
Okay.
Gilbert did most of the engine after Chip Morningstar.
And so my understanding, especially with Maniac Mansion, is this is probably a lot of people's first proper point-and-click from that general time period. Because this, you could get this on the NES, and that's very confusing, since the NES is not known for its robust library of point-and-click adventure games. It has
had that kick-ass port of King's Quest V, though.
But a lot of people couldn't afford a computer at that time.
That's true. I mean, yeah, that's absolutely right.
Computers were massively expensive at this point.
And you couldn't really do anything with them, which is the crazy part.
You could use the keyboard
to type. A job that necessitated them.
Yeah, they were mostly information processors as such.
So it was the first chance people who primarily played NES or Atari and arcade games, what have you, may have had to play that genre at all.
And you mentioned that you had been yourself very confused because you did play this one as a kid. And so it was just
weird. I was a
Mm-hmm.
really young kid, though. Let's be entirely fair. So, and not having had anybody around me who used computers, this was a totally new genre to me as a small child. When you rented games from the store back in the day, you didn't really always get an instruction manual. So I had no idea what was going on.
But something
I'm 33, so
if you if something pulled you in about this and it was a rental with no real instruction sheet, sometimes they had that weird sticker that nobody could read.
If you're lucky, but
print was worn off by the time it got to you. But yeah, I mean, what drew you into the game?
Do they just not trust you in America? Sorry, because every rental I ever went to, they either taped the manual into the thing or they gave you the manual. I've never rented something where they're like, no, you get nothing, just have a cartridge.
I kid you not. My cousin, every game he rented, he would just take and keep the manual forever.
Is that legal?
So it's one of the reasons that we never had.
It's not legal, but nobody's going to stop you. And he used to have a cabinet just stacked full of NES manuals for games.
So he's the guy. He's the reason that this one guy is that's it. Yeah. No manuals for anyone now.
In the greater Indianapolis area, he's the reason why your games did not have manuals when you rented them. If it was it would have been really hard to understand, but what kept you coming back? Because you obviously...
I think I went away from it for a good long while, but it stuck with me because of the art, because of the new genre that it was to me, that I had interest in, even if I didn't fully understand as a child. The music was great, and I was just generally interested. I always was interested in a game called Maniac Mansion. I always liked horror, so that always sounded kind of cool to me. I'm like, that's the coolest sounding NES game I've ever heard of.
I feel like this game be a bit overwhelming for a 4-year-old, but maybe I was just a dumb 4-year-old myself. So
it would have been almost
it really was
impenetrable to a 4-year-old.
The art in this game is unlike anything on the NES, I think, because almost every other game is going to be tile-based, whereas this one is obviously, again, like Shadowgate, it's just areas, and you've just got these large characters that walk around, so it's, again, quite an interesting tile.
Yeah, it really visually stuck with me because I hadn't seen much of anything like it. I was used to, racing games, shooting games.
I want to say that I just really appreciate how, for lack of a better word, anti-Sierra this game is. It's not nearly as needlessly cruel and obtuse as your average Sierra game. You can die, certainly, but you kind of really pretty much have to go out of your way to do so. It's pretty much your fault.
I would say, in contrast to some later LucasArts or Lucasfilm games or whatever, this one still has more of an edge to it in a lot of places, since getting locked in the dungeon is pretty punishing, and you can get killed, and the character system, it's a really interesting idea to have you get a character and you pick some other characters, and all your other characters act as extra lives if some of them get killed. But I think it does kind of, because it's a non-linear-ish game, it actually makes the game very kind of difficult to figure out what's going on in some ways. Because, if you have the wrong character and you interact with an object, they'll be like, oh, I can't do anything with this, I don't know. But another character will be like, yeah, I'll just do this. And so you get in this awkward kind of position where if you try and exhaust your options, you might not realize that an option that you thought was nothing actually is supposed to be interacted with another character, which can make it in some ways more difficult than a Sierra game. Because Sierra games, as a general rule, if you do something wrong, you get horribly murdered. That's generally what happens. But you've got a much more, if you die in a Sierra game, you're like, okay, I wasn't supposed to do that. Whatever I did, that was wrong. In this game, because you got a lot of semi dead ends, but also not dead ends. You can hit these points where you're like, did I do something wrong here? Did I miss something? Did I need to get an extra character? And then your characters get dragged off, and maybe you accidentally get everyone killed or thrown in the dungeon, and then you're stuck with a surfer guy, and you're just like, oh my god, what have I done? So you have to reset.
It's just me and Spicoli now. What am I going to do? I mean, the thing about, like, it has this kind of campy horror sense of humor that Caitlin alluded to that stuck out to me as a kid before I really knew what that was. But I knew what, like, kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to say like ironic kind of value or camp value or something. I kind of had a feeling of like when something was sort of not taking itself seriously, but being kind of deadpan about it. And
the goal when they were writing it was definitely B horror. They took a lot of inspiration from different B horror films.
Yeah, the kids had the brilliant idea of, you know what we should do? Take turns going into this house one at a time while the rest of us just wait in the front yard.
Well, you can switch between 3. That's important, though. Like, that's an interesting mechanic.
True. You can't send in a group. That's true. But still, like, the idea of, like, let's split up so we can be picked off individually.
Well, is that a Scooby-Doo thing? Have they just quickly grabbed a bit of Scooby-Doo and said, let's split up, gang, kind of deal?
Well, I mean, horror movies wouldn't really work.
No, everyone, they have to split up.
The people like, you know what we should do is stick together and call the cops. Like,
yeah.
Then it's over.
I memean, part of the thing about this a little bit is because the phones don't work, so there's like a slight implication that you can't straight away call the cops, I think.
Right.
I don't know. There's a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
There's obviously tentacles in this game that are there, which is kind of like very, very B grade, like these giant tentacles walking around that you talk to, and one of them's like, give me food, which is amusing.
They're purple and green, by the way.
Yes.
Oh, there's purple tentacle and green tentacle.
So cool.
That's going to be one of the more memorable
characters.
Yeah, because they bring these characters back because they're kind of more interesting, I think, than most stuff. The campiness you can also find, if we quickly mention that there's a little bit of censorship in the NES version. There was some sexual innuendos in the original version.
To be honest, I don't really mind that so much. I feel that in a way it kind of makes you feel a little closer to the more modern LucasArts adventure games. Because in modern LucasArts games, you're never going to have a character like threaten they're going to sexually molest you, so...
You won't get that on many Nintendo platforms either, so you can see why they did it. But that's,
Is that the language they use?
Probably unnecessary in the first place, but
Well, I can't remember, is it the daughter character or the wife character? Nurse Edna, sorry.
Nurse Edna.
Yeah.
Nurse Edna,
yeah, she's the doctor's wife.
Yes, the Nurse Edna character says a lot of innuendos. Very, very like, definitely 1980, like, sort of very lazy innuendos, but...
Where's the beef? I'm talking about your penis. Like that?
Basically, yeah, it's just like...
It's about as 1980s.
It's really funny, in the sense that it's like, you know, it's laughably poor innuendos, so that's fine. They removed a skeleton as well, which is kind of weird, and it's like, we can't have skeletons in the game, because...
You can nuke a hamster, you can get locked in a dungeon, but skeletons out now.
Yeah, just...
Meanwhile, like, Castlevania is like...
full of skeletons that do shit and just throw crap at you constantly.
Did you know that the mansion is actually designed after Skywalker Ranch?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I mean, I knew that, but I forgot.
That's some good trivia.
Completely.
That is some good trivia, isn't it?
Yeah, that's great stuff. It's, is it, like, is it directly, like, correlating to it? Like, is there elements in the mansion that you would actually have found in the ranch at the time, or is it just the general? Because, I mean...
I know the entertainment room in the library are direct replicas of rooms from the Skywalker Ranch. Other one may not be, and they were kind of changed to...
I'm really hoping that George Lucas has, like, a room which has just got a giant bed and 2 humongous speakers set up in it. Like, I hope that's Mr. Lucas's room.
I don't think he lives at the... It's an office.
No, but there's a bed, and there's... You look... That's what's in this game. There's beds and speakers.
Go to the giant speaker bedroom. We'll talk about some stuff. Get naked. It'll be cool. That's my George Lucas.
There's another thing.
That's pretty close.
Like, real quick.
Yes, Bob.
I like how the game's characters kind of actually speak and react to situations different ways. Like in Sierra games, like no one ever remembers what King Graham or Roger Wilco says. It's always about the narrator. But in this game, the characters actually kind of almost act like actual people.
It does feel like kind of like a like a Fast Times at Ridgemont High kind of cast too. Like you know which one would be played by Judge Reinhold and all that.
Yeah, I mean they've got every intention of just you know, I mean it's an 80s period piece, you know. They've just grabbed, you know, there's a nerd, there's a rocker, there's a kind of coolish guy, you know. It's so stereotype, and that's, you know, that's what we say when it's like B grade. It's going to be just stereotype after stereotype thrown at you. And you could definitely easily get away with that at this point, where it's kind of like, oh, this is kind of interesting and fun, and different to Swordy McKnight guy stabs a person, like, so that's kind of interesting.
More likely,
it was a
like
unique pastiche at the time.
Yes. So since there's so much that can be said about this game, and we will never have the final word on it, but we do need to rank it.
I'm gonna say Maniac Mansion has to be above Blue Singer. There's no way.
I know you're right.
Everyone wants to put things
the surfboard guy is kind of like a Dogs Bauer-esque character, so I can get behind this.
Especially considering the contribution that the Scum engine has made in overall terms of adventure gaming.
The biggest thing this game brings to the adventure gaming is basically exactly that. Just like, okay, everyone, stop making these stupid typing games. Nobody can play them. Let's get this under control. And, I mean, it's really telling because the text phraser interface.
I mean, King's Quest was huge inspiration for the game, but
yeah, like
I would definitely say this is a better game than King's Quest.
Well, King's Quest, and it's like after Maniac Mansion, King's Quest eventually had to adopt to a point-and-click interface as well. You know.
Yeah, but we've gone over that 5 isn't really that good of a game.
No,
especially compared to Monkey Island.
Okay, but
we're not even in the King's Quest 5 range, which is really, really low.
Right.
I think we're like looking at this is a seminal game. You know, it's not just in adventure games, but just in general importance. And I'm looking at the.
I mean, the tough one about this one is in terms of purely, I think, like the fun and that you sort of refinement. There's a lot of other point and clicks that kind of came out that were a little bit more like, you know, not like better essentially, but this one kind of was the adventure game that probably inspired a huge amount after. You know, you basically had Sayura games, which really needed something like Maniac Mansion to come out to sort of rein them in, because they were just constantly just the most overly technical, difficult to operate things. The Maniac Mansion comes out, and that leads to, the Monkey Island games. It leads to whatever, like Full Throttle. Basically, every LucasArts game owes everything to Maniac Mansion, which is
every Lucasfilm game you possibly love, every adventure game you love.
The thing that I find interesting is
some debt to Maniac Mansion.
I don't think many really went with a lot of its features in some ways. Like, obviously, I don't think any did the kind of like the semi like stuff happening, like characters moving around of their own impetus doesn't really happen in others. You don't really pick characters in others. They verbs, all of those are kind of redundanted out, and you kind of get far fewer. So it is kind of unique, and it's unique in some interesting ways that the other games didn't do, because it's insane, and the people who made this game knew, like, after making it, like, oh man, I wish we had thought this through a little bit more, because they had a real hard time making this game. Like, they didn't know what they were doing, and luckily for us, they weren't
6 to 9 months of development were spent solely on the engine.
Yeah, just getting things to work, and they had all these ideas, and luckily for us, they're the kind of people who would just like keep working and bashing their head against it until it functions, sort of, rather than the kind of people
that almost got Gilbert fired. It took so long with the game.
That would be
Ron Gilbert almost lost his job over Maniac Mansion.
This is a game developer, studio type place where their only job was don't lose money. Just break even, at least break even. That's what George Lucas told them. It's like, your only job here is not to lose money. I don't care what you do, just don't lose money. And then the share, I won't have to talk about,
Man, I missed that era of game development. That's a special time. It's like,
it was pretty much probably just Lucasfilm Games that had. Everybody else is like, you have to make money.
You have to just
make money.
Because nobody else had that kind of capital to work with.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he was just like, I like computers and I want to make games, and yeah, go for it.
Well, he was trying to establish, like, George Lucas is always like, how do we sort of establish ourselves and make more money? It's always like, what's the end game of making money? And that was definitely the plan here.
Well, he founded Pixar about the same time, or helped found Pixar. And then he got a divorce shortly thereafter, and a lot of stuff had to get sold off. Enter Steve Jobs, and then there's the rest of that.
But for this game, let's look at the numbers. Okay, so we've got something. We've got Space Harrier, Super Mario World 2, GoldenEye, Crash Bandicoot 2. I'm thinking somewhere in that area for Maniac Mansion.
I'd put it above Crash Bandicoot, but I don't like Crash Bandicoot.
You know what?
Yeah.
At this point, I think it'd be okay, just because Maniac Mansion is really special.
It really is.
I'm not going to make a habit of that, though. Crash 2 a lot.
I like it more than GoldenEye, but I understand a lot of people like GoldenEye a whole lot.
I think we should put it above GoldenEye.
I'm happy, actually.
GoldenEye is not Maniac Mansion.
I would be happy with that.
Yeah, no.
Okay, I'd be above GoldenEye.
If you think about it, Doom is way at the top, and that's closer than GoldenEye to being
okay with it being under Doom.
But
it is way under Doom, yeah, but
I think above GoldenEye is a pretty good spot for Maniac Mansion, because it does lack some of the refinement, and we know why it doesn't have that refinement, but that little refinement later on really made these games sing a lot better. This is a rough-edged thing, but everything owes it.
Viewed in a vacuum, I think it which is the right way to see this, because it is kind of the first of its ilk. It really is something special, and I think that's a good place to put it. So Maniac Mansion goes right above GoldenEye 007, and right below Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island. Our next game is Shenmue, which was nominated by @CoolNewDad on Twitter. It was developed by Sega AM2 and published by Sega. For the Dreamcast, its earliest release date and territory was December 29th, 1999 in Japan.
I really love that, just how they're like, we got to get this game out in 1999. Then we could say it's from 1999. It's great. And it's just like December 29, just get it out there just before the end of the year.
And it'll be called Shenmue 2000. Everybody's going to love it. It'll be on the Dreamcast because that platform will last forever.
Oh.
Hey, Shenmue 2 is on Dreamcast.
Yeah,
it is now.
In Japan and in Europe, Microsoft ate it in the US.
And I have the PAL release.
So you can get it in PAL, but I think that your save games don't work because of, that's how it goes.
They do work.
Do they? The transfer features from Shenmue 1 to 2, I thought, busted up.
I don't remember if the transfer works or not. Off the top of my head, I couldn't possibly tell you. Sorry.
Shenmue was a game of bloat.
Yeah. So let's. All right, I want to share a little Shenmue memory with y'all, with our beloved listeners. I remember looking at a video on my computer about the size of a baseball card, and that was showing off all the crazy cool new crap that was going to be on this Dreamcast thing, which was the most futuristic possible thing ever. It was going to run some form of Windows, which we all assumed meant it was going to be incredibly powerful, as if like every computer couldn't run some version of Windows. But that's what we thought because we were idiots. And one of those games that they showed us was Shenmue. And I was thinking, like, this is the future of video games. This is what video games are going to be like. Look at this guy. He's looking in drawers. He's looking into bookshelves. He's driving a forklift. They showed you.
You can pet a cat. You can get drinks from a vending machine.
At the time,
you can look for sailors.
Damn it! We're only like 4 minutes in, and we hit the sailor jokes.
There are
one.
Okay, you want to just get it out of the way now? Or
yeah, that's it.
I just wanted to get it in there.
That is important for Shenmue, and we can say 1999, but realistically, it was 2000, especially because I think the US and everywhere else release was late 2000. I think, because we kind of waited a whole year for it because that's how long we waited for.
I think it was mid. Actually. actually.
Okay.
Well, they spent a lot of time getting those voice actors, getting those lines just right.
I'm going to have to mention this in case I don't get an opportunity to mention it again. They actually released the English version in Japan as a special US edition in Japan. You could have the most Japanese game around with English voice acting released into the Japanese market as a special edition, which is so stupid.
I heard that was because Yu Suzuki really adored the English version for some reason.
Sega just really likes English in general.
They do like
it was
English.
later in here. November 8th and December 1st.
Okay.
I had those notes.
The thing about Shenmue is, I guess it was in that regard, so many games were like, I guess, kind of very, very basic interaction levels at this point. Like every game, for the most part, you just run around, you shoot things, or you run around and you talk to things, and you have RPG battles or whatever. Like every game is like that. You drive cars, whatever. Shenmue comes along and it's like, it's a world, it's like an entire Japanese town that is replicated in excruciating detail that you can go into every building and you can open every drawer and every NPC is a person and you can talk to everyone and they all have different voices and it's just loads and loads and loads of this stuff. And that was what Shenmue was kind of advertised on. And I guess in some regard it delivered that specific thing, it delivers that vagueness.
Yeah. It sounded so much like something that we really want. I mean, look, this is the big joke everybody knows about Shenmue. It's like, oh my god, you're just like walking around. It's like an open world if that open world was like a really small fishing village in Japan. You know what I mean? Like and I'll say, like, in terms of like the sense of place and stuff, all the stuff that they cared a lot about, they did nail it. If you go to Japan and walk around one of these little towns, I mean, that is what it looks like.
I will say, though, that's something that does impress me. You really do, you feel like you're just this person, this actual person living in the actual place with people who know you and are doing their own thing.
Yeah, and
they don't feel like NPCs in the game.
As most normal people, you wake up one morning and a crazy guy kills your dad, and then you have to avenge his murder. And that's your day-to-day life. You immediately
going to town and like, oh,
that's what you
I
do
heard
when
about your
somebody
dad
kills your
getting brutally murdered in front of your eyes.
Okay, I just want to say
that sucks.
This game is like a martial arts movie if the main character had crippling ADHD.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's kind of like the real problem that kind of immediately comes from this game's atmosphere. Is like the whole game of Shenmue, the first, because this is supposed to be like part 1 of 16, part 1 of 12, I can't remember the exact number, but that was what Shenmue was going to be.
5 or 6.
It should just be called like Hubris the Game. I mean, it's just so they really. It is like the first chapter of a book.
Yeah, so
you'll never get to read the rest of.
And so obviously, instead of being, this whole part of the game, you can divide this game into like 3 or 4 moments, and that was all the game was supposed to be in terms of scale. Like, what you really need is he tries to find the guy that killed his dad, finds the people that know who killed his dad or whatever. He has to rescue his girlfriend or not girlfriend. They have no chemistry at all. There's a voice acted song, and then he gets on a boat. That's the whole game. So this would be like the first 10 to 15 minutes of a movie, of like a 2-hour long movie.
In fact, I dare say most movies would skip right to the getting onto the boat part. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he would just go to like the harbor and be like, "Hey, did you see a something that this guy?" And they're like, "Yeah, I saw that guy. He got on a boat and went to Hong Kong." All right, I'm going to Hong Kong.
But like, there is something to be said about this because it's really an adventure game, and it's interesting to talk about this after talking about Maniac Mansion because when I fired up Shenmue again, and lo and behold, my original save was still there. It was.
That's pretty impressive. VMU's batteries are not superb.
VMUs don't work that way. If a VMU battery dies, you'll still have your memory.
I was more concerned that the battery would leak out and destroy his entire cot. Or his entire... Yeah, because that'll happen.
So if it beats fast, you'll have problems. But no, batteries aren't tied to the actual ROM chips.
Which is good, because
you're fine.
Otherwise you play
got Caitlin. We got to come up with a sound effect for that.
How many times are you going to drag this poor person onto the show?
I'll have her back anytime.
So one thing real quick. If there's anything Shenmue reminds you more than anything, it's one of those old-style Japanese adventure games. You have to check everything and use every verb multiple times to progress.
It definitely...
It is kind of... Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, like, it is kind of like the... We didn't get this because we didn't play, like, Portopia or... I don't know what the other ones are, like Night of the Sickle Weasel or who knows what.
There's like all these
weird, like, crime adventure games.
So many PC 88 and 98 games.
Games Hunter CX.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Like, we don't have any affection for this stuff. And so there might be, because to me it's weird to think, like, Yu Suzuki, creator of Hang On and other games that are fun, comes... Like,
some of those are in this game. It
sounded more like it's like, this is what he really wanted to do. It's like, this is the most opposite thing of the Yu Suzuki experience that I could think of. It's like, he also made, like, what, Fantasy Zone and things like. It's got a Cyclops mammoth in it. I mean, that pulls me in from the first minute.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, he did also create Virtua Fighter, which was, besides the moon jumps, which are totally inexplicable. I mean, he had his development team performing martial arts moves in order to get a sense of realism about it.
A small tangent. I love how you can, like, you'll need to have a time, you need to meet somebody at a certain time. Just say, oh, I guess just play Space Harrier, and then the whole day is gone. Then you feel like you've just been hit way close to home.
Well, I've wasted time while I was wasting time. So, like, not only could I have been out in the world earning real money, I also failed to achieve my objectives by wasting time in this fake world.
I mean,
I'm a double loser.
That's definitely, you can see that the train of thought where Yu Suzuki just kept going more and more realistic. And we are aware that I believe Shenmue hatched out of Virtua Fighter RPG, correct? That was going to be like
that is correct.
So this is kind of this weird extension from, he went, okay, I'm going to make a 3D game, it's going to be realistic. I'm going to make a 3D game based on my 3D game that's an RPG. Now it's kind of, I've thrown out the fighting game for the most part, and now it's just an RPG, and that's what we ended up with.
That's something that kind of bugs me. This game has a pretty decently deep combat system, but you barely ever get to use it.
Yeah, that is frustrating.
Like, because they ripped it out of Virtua Fighter 3, and then they tweaked it to make it a kind of a brawler system. It works a lot better than Tekken Force Mode, which is another take a fighting game engine and turn it into a beat 'em up. This is actually...
I will not have you maligning the name of Tekken Force while I am on this podcast. I love Tekken Force.
It's Tekken 3, and the inclusion of Tekken Force was like wow, it's even got a beat 'em up in it. This is so great.
I play Tekken Force so much.
But the tweaking for this one is a lot more. They did refine it in a significant way. It feels a little bit like Virtua Fighter 3, but also definitely has like some more flamboyant moves, I guess. Like very like he sort of throws people and flips them around. And
what is he like? His dad, the main character. His dad was like a martial art. Like, what is he supposed to be, like judo or what exactly? Like, is it just like plot?
I could not tell you what specific martial art it is.
Yeah, I'm not sure they go into, because Ryo, the name of the main character, he just kind of learns just random moves. I think just like because you can learn moves in this game as one of the innumerable random things that you can just kind of do. You can learn moves, so in the 3 or 4 combat instances in the entire game, you can have different moves. And I think that they're just a random assortment of kind of Aikido and Judo and just various flippy moves.
The fascinating thing about this game is that it's hard for me to just completely dismiss it out of hand. And what I love about playing it now, in hindsight, when I'm not expecting it to be like the next evolution in like the human experience, what I like about it is that this is a game that could not exist unless Japan had its weird office culture where seniority like at a certain level just allows you to do whatever until you fail. And it's like this is what happens when you've got somebody who's had several hits under their belt. They've been working at the company too long. Everybody owes them. or feels some kind of obligation of deference to them. And they'll just say, I'm going to do this. It's going to be huge. It's going to be great. And just like, do this, and add this. And it's going to be like that. And make sure that those,
Well, everything Yu Suzuki touched, I think, was gold for the most part, up to, and you would even say when it came out, including Shenmue,
Yeah, it's true. I mean,
it did sell 1.2 million copies, as far as I remember.
Was that enough to make it break even? Because it cost a lot of money.
No, it was not enough to make it break even, and that's the problem.
This game...
the problem wasn't whether even it's a great or a bad game. I think it's a great game, but that's not the point. The point is, he made a game with such a high budget that it was realistically speaking, it was never going to recoup the cost.
I'm pretty sure that what they were thinking was that this is going to be a hit, and then we're going to put out the sequel, and we'll be able to build on everything we did because we did all the groundwork. We laid the foundation. We've got the engine. We've got the ideas. Now we're just going to tell the rest of the story.
That definitely feels like that, especially since Shenmue 2, which I would probably say is a better game, whether it's a better experience.
Alone in saying that.
It's truncated, it's condensed, but it's much more focused, and I don't think that game cost the $47 million or what insane number of dollars they spent on Shenmue. Shenmue 2,
47 and 70. Up to 70 million.
Shenmue is a thing that you wouldn't know doesn't work until you tried it. Because at the time, in 1998, everybody hearing about this, myself included, thought this sounded rad as hell. And it was like, of course I really want to do this. I want to go around the town where people remember my name and stuff like that. And they interact with me. And I want to have be challenged by I've got to make sure I've talked to this guy, but I better talk to him before 8 o'clock because then I can't knock on the door or else it would be rude. Which is something that really happened to me when I picked up the game and tried to start over.
This game is kind of too realistic for its own good, to be honest.
But it's not realistic enough in some ways. What the hell is wrong? You've got in your little diary, it says you have to talk to Yamamoto-san or something like that, and I spend all day trying to figure out where this bastard lives. I find his nameplate outside the door, and then I go there. It's I can't bother them now. I don't have anything. I think his exact words are something like, I shouldn't bother him. It's not important or something like that. No, it's in your freaking diary. You have to talk to this person. It's 8:01 p.m. Knock on their freaking door and talk to them. This is the only thing you have to do. No, actually, you can't. You got to walk all the way back to your house, go to sleep, or train, I guess.
Yeah, because while you talk about you're getting lost, this game doesn't have a map. It's realistic in that you have no idea where anything is, even though you've lived there your whole life or something.
Yeah, it's not realistic at all because you have lived there your whole life, so you should know exactly where you're going.
Yeah.
And you don't.
But you, the player, have no idea.
Chunk of the beginning of the game where you are looking at people's basically looking at their street addresses, trying to find, and because you can't read Japanese, the game has to tell you. So
I feel it should be said that if you were or are interested, were a fan of or are interested in Shenmue, and you haven't played Yakuza, you need to.
That would be so weird. If someone's like, "I love Shenmue, but I refuse to play Yakuza," what? Why would you do that?
I've been in a coma since 2002.
The reason I'm saying that very specifically is that I was a huge fan of Shenmue, and I didn't know Yakuza was what it was until, Yakuza 4 came out.
Well,
I can see that, because
Sega are really bad at selling their good games. I don't know why, but they just have this incredible problem where they can make a really good game, and they can't sell it, but they can make Sonic Boom repeatedly and just keep advertising it non-stop and be like, play this game, it exists. Come on. Yeah, don't play it.
I didn't.
It worked again.
It's not that it didn't interest me. It's that I had no idea that it was effectively Shenmue, but with Japanese mobsters. Please give me this. This is all I want in life.
You would think
it's true crime, in Japan or something like that. Some generic.
Would you guys say that Yakuza is what Shenmue should have been from the first place?
Should have been? No, I don't think it could have been what it is without Shenmue.
Shenmue is it's a game that's moving in a direction that very few games want to go in this specific direction, and I think that's cool. Even if it's hard to like Shenmue unless you're a specific person that does like it, because I know, because I did check, there's a lot of people on, YouTube comments, and I don't like to read this, but I do check them, who have talked on Shenmue videos and things, and have said, like, wow, I love Shenmue, I still love it, it's still one of my favorite games to date. So, there's people that really do dig this game for what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I can make fun of it.
I understand why it has problems and all of the problems, so I'm willing to acknowledge them, but I still love the game.
Yeah.
I do too. I cannot imagine living in a world where Shenmue did not exist, just because this is the example of so many things when I'm playing a game is like, well, that doesn't make sense. Shouldn't I be able to, oh wait, yeah, there was a game where that logic worked, and it was crazy.
From my perspective, if I could speak for a minute, I never played Shenmue even back when I had a Dreamcast, but I've always heard it was just supposed to be this incredible experience. Now that I've played it, I do think it's fundamentally good and very much impressive, but I think it's kind of a bit too overdone, and it kind of suffers for that.
It's drawn out. I mean, the thing is they shouldn't have approached it as like, we're going to do the first part of like a 12-part saga or something like that. They should have said, no, let's make a game that is at most like the first half of this thing. Like they should have had, and they should have shrunk the story down so it would have fit in whatever setting you put it in, or 2 settings or something. Because that's the main thing, is you feel like you're just spinning your wheels in this game, and that's not fun, even if you like the environment and enjoy it. And like I said, like, if you have the chance, if you ever go to Japan,
seems to have a problem with doing that.
Yeah,
because Shenmue 2 also has that problem, not to that extent, but it still has that problem.
I think he still felt like he was going to get a chance to finish it, to continue.
He might. Momentum. Because this game got kickstarted for a decent chunk of money. There are still a lot of people out there that want to see Shenmue finish.
It was over $6 million they got.
That's
if you tell somebody like the first 2/5 of a story,
they're like itching, like, come on, man! It was just about to get good. There's all this stuff happening now. Where is the games?
Are they seriously going to call the next one like Shenmue parts like 3 through 7 or something?
I would love so much if he did like a part, like just like. Actually, I just decided to make the part immediately after this, and it's
Shenmue Chapter 3, Part 1.
I decided to go back and finish the boat chapter that I didn't do. We skipped that one, and I felt there was some content in that really needed to be done.
On a boat. It's an adventure game on a kind of small boat.
You're going to do the director's cut of the walk you have in Shenmue 2?
That just feels... I mean, the thing is, Shenmue is hubris incarnate, but I will say, to its credit, unlike something like the infamous Peter Molyneux, who kind of just... He promises the world and it just kind of vomits on your face. This game...
Wow.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah, this game is exactly what it promises.
It really does try, and it really does try and deliver, and you can see them like going, this is the game, and we're trying our best to give you what the game is, and
we don't. If you're not Japanese, and I'm not, I don't know about you guys, but like it's kind of hard to appreciate this sort of level of authenticity that they were striving for and hit with this game, because this is something that we see now. Like when you play a game like, say, Gone Home or something like that, which really is kind of like, in a way, a spiritual successor to part of what Shenmue was doing. What you're looking at is like they pick a setting, they pick a time, or you look at a show now like Netflix, Stranger Things or something like that, and
yeah, I mean, I can see where
there's this attention to detail that we really appreciate now, but in 1999. Nobody cared about that kind of thing.
Well, the real tough
I really want to see, but it was cool. Like there was an attention to detail there that is hard for us to appreciate because we didn't grow up in a small Japanese community. But if you go to one of those places, even now, it's like going back in like a Showa era time machine where you see like it does look like Shenmue. Like it really does.
Yeah, because Shenmue was set in the... I guess we should mention, Shenmue was technically set in the past to begin with.
Right.
It's set in the 80s, yeah.
1987? I think it's 86, right?
Yes, that's why you're playing arcade games that are from that period, because that's supposed to be when you're there.
I mean, they kind of fudge the dates a little bit to get these games in.
But you can have the real weather from the time period in the town, because they put that in, because why not? Why not build a realistic weather simulator and then exactly replicate the weather conditions of 1986 Japan, because that's what you spend your money on.
Do you remember the day that the snow turned into rain? Oh, you mean the day your father was brutally murdered before your very eyes? Yes, that is the day the snow turned into rain, and also my father was murdered.
I also
remember that. Never really seemed that upset about it when we ask people about it.
No, he's not.
Although I will say that the guy who does Rio's voice acting is way better than everybody else.
That's one of the actual flaws of English Shenmue is everything is, from the Japanese version, it's like everything is polished, but then the voice actors are kind of like, yes, this is what we are doing in the town.
I can't talk to you right now.
It's like, thanks.
That's why the PAL version of Shenmue 2 is so great, because you got the Japanese version with English subtitles.
That's right, which is exactly what you should have gotten in the first place. Because if you can appreciate every other detail in this game, you are not the kind of person who's going, why in this shit in English, damn it?
Yeah, like that's crazy.
You won't like it anyway. Like, just put it in Japanese.
Because they spent extra money to put it in English. Like, what the?
Really bad English. Exceptionally bad.
So this is before we rank this. I just want to throw out one story. I was going to tell the long story about how I was supposed to find that guy, and then I went to his house, and because it was 8:05, I couldn't get in. But there's another story about this is a kind of thing. Like, what I think about this is Redbeard the video game, and by that I mean I'm referring to the Akira Kurosawa movie Redbeard. It was made in the 60s. It was like his last major studio film that wasn't financed by white dudes. And what he did was, in this movie, was he made a period accurate town out of reclaimed wood from old buildings and stuff, built a whole city apparently, and then filmed a corner of it and then leveled it in a simulated earthquake. He spent millions of dollars doing this. Is the story anyway. And after that, he kind of couldn't get arrested in Tokyo. He was persona non grata, because that was just a bridge too far. And that kind of is but there's something admirable about that. And that's what I want to. But when we look now to ranking this game, just remember that there's something insane.
What you described there, that analogy puts you, I would say, directly from Kurosawa to Suzuki to Kojima.
Yeah.
Can't leave out Kojima.
He hasn't gotten his comeuppance yet.
Well, I mean, people still really want to see that level of. There is something really truly admirable about people who I guess you could call them auteurs if you want. I don't know how. I know that we don't consider game developers as much
creative lunatics.
But yeah, you could call these people that have enough influence
to call any game developer an auteur. It's those.
Yeah, so these insane people who spend way too much on something that nobody else could, very few people can sort of walk into Sony or Sega or whatever and say, give me $15 million for a game because I want to take photos of some people's kneecaps, and then I need that to make my game. And they're like, all right, you can have the money. You can have the $10 million for kneecap photos.
Every creative person at some point goes too far.
Yeah.
And it's very, very few people who go just too far enough. That doesn't really happen that often, You either go way too far or you don't get to realize your dream. Because
Shenmue did, in many ways, get finished. The first game and the second game are games that you can play and you can experience the excess, the waste.
You they would be.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's really great. So, this is a tough one to place, though. They often are, but this one's pretty tricky, I think, because is it a great game? Because I'm shaky on whether it's if it's not the greatest game.
Oh my
on the
god,
list.
no, it is not. But I do love it, and that's why I'm saying
I'm not sure where I'd put it. I'm just going to say it's not what I thought it would be, but I appreciate it for what it is, and I'll leave it at that.
Won't get many more of these, I'll tell you that much.
Oh, don't challenge them. They'll dig up everything. That's insane. But, I mean, look, so let's just go from number 40 on our list, Bushido Blade. Let's look at that.
Oh, well, it's
I would
definitely...
say it's a better game than Bushido played.
Oh! Oh.
I know Xerxes is...
I don't think I disagree.
Bushido Blade is one of his precious games.
It is my precious.
That's fine. It's not that I don't like the game, but
I don't think it's better than God Hand. I'll say that.
I'm going to say Shenmue is way more important than Bushido Blade.
It is.
In some ways. The thing about Shenmue is... Grand Theft Auto 3 came out a year or two after, and that's kind of like, that's the big one that shifted development focus a lot. I think a lot of people looked at Shenmue and developer-wise and went, we're not touching that. That can just be its thing. We're not... This is insane. Nobody's touching Shenmue, because we don't have the budget.
Making a game like Shenmue and then saw Shenmue and was like, oh, we can't do this. No, nobody was doing that, because nobody would come up with this in the first place. Like I said, like if you want to see like a game that takes the eccentricities of Shenmue and turns them into its own thing, you're looking at the quote-unquote walking simulators of today. You're looking at games that are basically just telling a very small story and creating an atmosphere and are...
Are you talking something like Firewatch? That sort of...
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you have like those games. You have Yakuza. Obviously, it's a big Shenmue.
Yakuza's that's a game.
Yeah, it's a game. There's some other Japanese games that are kind of like Japanese slice of life simulators. I think it's the Way of the Samurai games. I think they're called that. And that's like you just play as a samurai in a condensed like 3-day period, and you like walk around a town and ally yourself with different people and factions and things like that's.
But there's a point. I think Caitlin's made a valuable point here, which is that there will not ever be. I mean, this is a.
Shenmue's a crazy game,
gem, but it is a crazy, completely bonkers, insane, nonsense kind of game that is still playable, and it's still enjoyable. It's just no one is ever going to do this again. And there's in Shenmue is actually kind of its own reason for that. I mean, it is the reason why nobody plays the game now. Is like, why can't I open that desk up and like see what's inside? Oh, yeah, there was a game where you could do that, and there was no point to doing that. You should just touch a button and you see what's inside the desk.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like it doesn't matter how real you want to get. There's a level of verisimilitude you don't need to get into. You shouldn't be selecting drawer by drawer which things you're going to investigate. Open a damn drawer, and that should be everything that's in that chest of drawers. That's all you need. You don't need to go select. I mean, this is a game where you select a wardrobe and you move down to select individual drawers in the wardrobe to find stuff. It's just, and almost none of it is going to be useful.
No, but that's the true Shenmue experience. And if you take long enough dicking around, Landi will show up. If you wait long enough, he'll show up and just kill your ass. Like, the game will only last for 6 months or whatever in the game's time, and then Landi will just show up and be like, "Hey, Ryu, give me the thing," and then he'd be like, "No, I'm gonna kill you," and then he just punches you and you die. That's the end of the game.
Is the time limit that strict?
Rio, not Ryu.
I will. Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's right.
So
Rio.
I want to put it.
Rio.
Okay, so can we put it below God Hand, above Bushido Blade?
Is that a good position for it? Like,
I think it is, because it's not as silly of a game as it is. It's not a bad game.
No, it's not bad. I mean, no.
It's compelling in a weird way, just because you kind of, in a way, it's sort of cheating, because it's like compelling to see like how much crazier can this game get, and not crazy in the Illbleed sense, which we'll get to later.
I look forward,
but crazy in the how many different ways can I feed this cat kind of sense. Like, it's it's just, it's
a unique frozen fragment of the time it existed in.
Shenmue is Shenmue. You say Shenmue, people are like, yep, Shenmue.
Right. I think I've used this analogy before, but it's kind of like when you say like Billy Joel is the Billy Joel of rock and roll stars. Like, he's the only. There's nobody that fills that void. It's like there's no Shenmue of games except for Shenmue.
Yeah.
Like, it's the Shenmue. It's the. You can say something is the Shenmue of movies. But we're like the Shenmue of novels or something. But like, you can't.
Those sound very bad.
I would. There probably is a Shenmue of movies.
There's several, that exist. But unless someone's gonna have a complaint, Below God Hand is A-okay with me.
I think that's good.
All right.
I think it's
Yeah, it's not because I don't like Bushido Blade. I think Bushido Blade's a great game. I just think it's more important as a piece of time.
It is. I mean, nobody's like... Bushido Blade is a game that could have had a huge influence and had no influence. And...
but it's really cool.
It is really cool. And Shenmue's a game that had no influence, but everybody remembers it. And a lot more people played it. And that counts.
It sold 1.2 million copies. Somebody played it. Below God Hand, we out.
Our next game is Illbleed. It was nominated by @Chunderfins on Twitter.
That's a good name.
Yeah, it is. I don't know what it means.
Maybe not as good as Bonus Lizard, but we appreciate your name anyway.
Bonus Lizard is pretty damn good.
I mean, our followers have a lot of great Twitter handles and stuff. It's very
there was a brief conversation between Crush Gals and Lord of Butt between like what it was like to get demoted from having the best name of the nominees. But anyway, Illbleed. It was developed by Crazy Games and it was published by Crazy Games in Japan and AIA in the United States for the Dreamcast. Another Dreamcast game.
Boy, could they not have a more fitting name though? Crazy Games.
Crazy Games. I just think like it's time to make some crazy games.
Formerly known as Climax Graphics. Woo-hoo-hoo.
Did they go from Crazy Games to sort of being back to Climax? I can't remember if they dissolved after Illbleed, basically. They kind of fell apart, I think.
Well, it was partly because the main person behind the game, I forget his name at the moment, died, didn't he?
Not immediately.
Katsuro Sugimori was the director.
Yes, he passed away during the Xbox era, though. So this game, I cut Xerxes off. This game was... Japan was released in March 29, 2001, which
yes,
is fairly late in the Dreamcast life cycle of Sega actually supporting the system. I think that's getting on in the short life cycle of the Dreamcast.
For me,
April 16th in the U.S., barely a month.
Yeah.
But it didn't need translating or altering or anything. They just dumped it across. They didn't.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, this is a hard game for me to talk about because this does feature the untimely death of one dog's W. Bauer. I don't know what the W stands for. I just came up with that, but it's now canonical because I'm on the internet.
They never really went in whether this was the canonical death of Mr. Bauer. It was just kind of, he's dead.
Could have been faking it. Yeah. Well, this game doesn't really ever explain to you like whether
at
it's
least
real
he'll be
or
debt free.
At least he's finally debt free.
Boy,
that great bath in the sky.
Boy, is this game! Yeah, like this game is about the cast of characters. I know the main character's name is Eriko. The other characters have names, but you barely acknowledge their existence unless you play as them. Which why would you bother? And they go to the Illbleed horror sideshow horror theme park to
Can you say horror a third time?
I'm gonna try, but I really have a messed up accent, so
I just want to hear it.
Horror.
Oh, I love it.
All right, and so they go to this theme park to win $1 million because that's not suspicious at all.
Not a million, 100 million.
Sorry, 100 million.
This is a theme park that kills people, and apparently no one really minds or anything.
The entire world that this game is set in barely acknowledges reality. It is like a fevered dream of reality because people die, but maybe they don't. Maybe everyone is wood puppet people. Maybe everything is fake. You have no idea.
The game never really decides whether you're actually in any real danger or not. It doesn't tell you. Like, are you really dying? Are you not really dying? Are these things like...
On the other hand, I would say it does if you want to include exactly one thing, and that's Kevin's brain.
Because Kevin's brain you can take Kevin's brain out, and then Kevin is a moron from that point on.
That's just like, I think it kind of acknowledges it that way.
But, you
not
can't...
directly, but...
I don't think you can get the good ending if you lose Kevin's brain, can you? Because this game has a few endings to it, so...
It's not the true good ending.
The good ending isn't even a good ending for the main character, which is really a very unusual take on a good ending. Because something terrible happens to Eriko if she achieves the good ending, so...
Yeah, that always kind of...
That's Illbleed.
About that.
So yeah, but you can die, and then you get resurrected, because you can pay money to get resurrected, and then you do come back to life, and everything's fine. And it's just... odd. So you go through several... Essentially, they're supposed to be rides within the Illbleed theme park, and they're rides in the sense...
They're not rides, they're theaters.
Yeah, they're rides in the sense they're theaters, but there are, like, what do you call the sideshow spooky houses? There's not many in Australia, so I don't know their exact name.
A haunted house or fun house.
Yes, basically that.
What do you call them in Australia? Like boogly doos or?
We just don't have them. We barely have anything Halloween themed, so we don't do much of the horror. And there's basically a lot of...
You scared me.
There's a lot of true blue Aussies who just get really furious about Halloween, because it's like, hey, have some Halloween candy. They're like, that's not Australian, mate. Get out of here. Go back to America. Like, they get really furious about Halloween, so don't even try and follow Halloween in Australia.
Here we celebrate Booglemas.
Australia sounds kind of crappy.
We celebrate Australia Day, which is where we celebrate us kind of removing the Indigenous Australians. Like, that is what we celebrate, which is really messed up. But let's move on from that and go back to Illbleed here.
Are celebrating like the last time we got along with the Indians.
So
it's just as perverse.
Yeah. So what happens in Illbleed is you basically run these attractions or theaters. They're called theaters, but you actually experience them. You go through them, and they're all like little stories. Some of them seem to play out the way they're supposed to. Others, the entire story is actually falling apart as you're playing it, which is really cool. And it's never really acknowledged whether that's actually supposed to happen or not, because you have no idea. So I'm not going to go through I think it's 6, you get 6 stories, and then you get like a final little episode.
The guy who created the theme park, the like Scooby-Doo-esque villain, right, who created the theme, like he was a movie director, right? Like he's kind of like the...
He was a movie director, but I think it's implied he's got a lot of, like, he's kind of a Renaissance man. Like, he did movies, but he does a bunch of other things, and so he made the theme park. And people come there to win money, but they all die, and everything is cool. Everyone's cool with that.
Michael Reynolds, by the way.
Michael Reynolds.
Very odd name. So, yeah.
The final one is his horror museum, so...
Yes. It reminds me of that time I went to Michael Crichton's, like, Climate Change is Fake theme park. It was so weird, you guys.
That's a large tangent that I don't...
But so the moment you arrive... Oh, that's right. The way the Illbleed plot works, your friends went there, and Eriko was like, no, I don't want to go there for some reason. Then they all get kidnapped or their brains ripped out and stuff. And so Eriko has to go to Illbleed to rescue her friends. So you go through each level and rescue each of Eriko's friends, Kevin and Jorg and Randy. I don't think Jorg's a friend, but he's there too, which is a great name. Jorg.
He's your friend.
He's not. He's like just a reporter who's investigating Illbleed for some reason. Someone's investigating the theme park that kills hundreds of thousands of people a year. Who would have thought that would be suspicious?
Hey, we should send one of our best guys out on that. What do you think? Now you're crazy. Let's send Jorg.
And Jorg's just kind of like wandering around like, boy, a lot of people are getting murdered in here. This is kind of interesting, isn't it? So yeah, so you go through all these levels and you save them, and once you save them, you can play with them as well. So I'll go through the gameplay a little bit, unless someone else wants to tackle what you actually physically do in this game.
I can speak for if anyone would be okay.
Okay, Bob, you handle the gameplay.
Well, it's kind of a survival horror sort of deal. Doesn't control quite like Resident Evil, for one thing. I think you do have free control, which is nice. Each level, or theater, what you call it, has its own distinct story. I guess it's kind of like a horror anthology kind of thing. So you have like a different goal in each stage, kind of figuring out what's going on and solving the problem there. I do appreciate that. Like, one level, it's about like this, about these wooden puppets who go around attacking people, and you're trying to figure out why that's happening.
Which I'm pretty sure that wooden puppet thing is based on Junji Ito. I think it's just a general homage to everyone's favorite Amagara Fault manga writer. Because that
really?
Well, if you have a look at the wood puppets, they look very much like the style of art that he created, and his big theme is kind of like bodies getting inserted into things and body horror like that. So I'm pretty sure it's a reference to him.
Every once in a while, I remember
read a
one
lot
of his stories.
Ito, and I am not aware of any story that directly.
Not directly, but very few of the things in this game are direct.
Actually, there's one.
Okay.
There's one that's a doll that's used to control other people.
Well, because I know he's got someone who
make you do what you
who
want.
gets inside a chair. I think that's one of his stories.
Yes, that is one of them. I can guarantee that.
But like all 6 levels are kind of different horror-ish things, except for one, which is Woody from Toy Story Goes to Hell, which is
that level's
a really curveball of a level.
It has absolutely nothing to do with the rest of the game in the slightest.
Like, wow, that level is just Woody.
Yeah, you're Court Inda.
Oh.
You have to travel with Toy Hell to rescue Sexy Doll.
Yeah, and she's just called Sexy
from
Doll.
Zodic.
And she is literally a...
Zodic the Hell Hog.
Yeah, I love the Sonic reference. He spews rings out when you hit him, and you have to kill his rings to kill him. What a...
You have to kill your owner so you can get buried in his coffin so you can go to hell.
That's the way the game rolls.
Makes sense to me.
I do like the Sonic one because he's like the most terrifying... One of the most terrifying things in the game because he doesn't really speak. I think he just has like this stare, and he just makes this like machine rumbling, like shrieking. And it's just like, what did they think of Sega? Like, because they're putting us on a Sega system, just like, and that's like, cool. And Sega was like, neat. We like this. Yeah, and so there's like a slasher. There's a reference to a sort of 50s and 60s like giant monster movies, because there's a giant earthworm. And it's really cool that all these levels are presented in just kind of like, they have cutscenes and that sort of thing, and they are presented in this very odd kind of, they don't feel like real spaces, because they're supposed to be, parts of an amusement ride, parts of an amusement park kind of thing, so you can kind of almost feel like everything's just sets, and like, it kind of feels very cramped.
And is it real or not? It doesn't make any sense, and that's part of the charm of this game. I think
it's an incredibly charming game, like one of the most B-movie games that actually feels. Because I think this is one of the few games that I think really hits a B-grade game, like not just like a game that's trying to be like a B-movie. This game feels like a B-grade game as well.
It is by the people who did Blue Stinger. Which is near and dear to my heart, and is about as B-movie of a game as you can get.
Because this kind of like goes the most meta level, because like Blue Stinger is a B-movie game, but it's more of just a game that is actually a B-movie.
Plays it pretty straight, yeah. Whereas Illbleed is a little bit tongue-in-cheek.
B-movie is like a B-movie game about B-movies.
Illbleed is the kind of game where I think anytime you want, you can just call down a helicopter to like whisk you away.
Yeah, so the way
not anytime you want. It shows up sometimes in battle.
The way the fight system works,
mash the B button,
is you get so the gameplay, you get the horror monitor, I think it is. It's the horror monitor, and you get horror vision out of that.
Yeah.
You basically you look around areas, and you have several bars: hearing, sight, smell. I think you have
and ESP or something.
And
like
ESP
that, right?
is for items. So the idea is you can look around, you can tag a lot of things in the environment, and the idea is you look through your camera and you tag things that you think are going to scare you, because that's where this kind of like horror theme sort of thing comes in. Yeah,
most of there are fights with like skinless horse mutant type things like
and rancid eggs.
Yeah, but a lot of it is just like you get scared to death. Like you've got like a fear meter or something, and you can have a heart attack if you get scared.
There's several things that can happen to you.
It's your if your pulse reaches 255 or 0, you'll die.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But you can also bleed to death.
And you can bleed to death, which is one of the few games where that can happen.
Yeah, if you don't have...
kind of cool.
The game has like 6 different healing items or some ridiculous number, so you can raise your pulse, you can lower your pulse, you can get bandages so you're not bleeding, you can get heal items, and you're just chugging these things, all this different stuff. And
get Hassy, right?
Yeah, this is the...
You could slam back a couple Hassy.
Again, because from Crazy Games, there are ads for Hassy in the game, and you can drink Hassy in the game. That's really cool. I love that tied-in world feel to further cement that Dog's Power is dead in this game.
I think it does show Dog's Powers truly died. He went to Illbleed. He's like, I think I'm going to go to Illbleed and take a bath. And it was a bath. It was a bloodbath.
But I see what you did there.
So the game is like that, and the way it rewards you, it's a really very nice system. If you take a picture of something that is actually going to spook you, you get more energy back to take more photos of things to spook you. If you try and mark everything, you run out of spook energy, or whatever it's called. I'm sorry, I don't remember. It's I don't care. The game doesn't care what it's called.
It doesn't matter.
Do you care what it's called? I don't.
I just like listening to you describe it.
But
I agree with that.
So you take so if you just try and beat all the scares by just haphazardly ignoring your monitor, you'll run out of energy and you'll get spooked by everything.
I have a heart attack and die.
Yeah, and
so funny.
So that's what happens. But not all the traps spook you. Some traps will stab you so you start bleeding, because of course. And there's so many different effects. Some of them are really lazy, like just stuff gets splashed on the screen. But sometimes the monster of the level will come out and wave its like crap at you or just freak you out or something. So in some ways it's a bit silly because you actually remove
crash test dump. You keep showing up.
I hate those guys.
Yeah, you're kind of like removing what's interesting about the game if you're playing it properly.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you dodge a lot of the scares.
A lot of the. They didn't really think that through.
Yes, but yeah. So sometimes you get combat, which there's very little random combat in this game. Sometimes I think some of the levels, the puppet level, you get random generated combat, but for the most part, you take photos of things, and even if they're monsters and you take a photo of them, they'll still pop out, and you'll have to run around a little. Very confusing, like a little box gets generated in the level.
Yeah, there's a little area that gets drawn.
So you either have to fight them with a different series of weapons, because this game plays level by level in a very true sense. Each level is reset. You beat the level, and you just get thrown out of the level. So use all your healing items before you leave the level, because they are thrown out from the moment you quit the level. Everything is reset. I don't know if your health is properly reset, though, so be careful with that. But... yeah, and you can escape, as Xerxes tried to say, and Caitlin said,
helicopter. Even if you're inside a building, it'll just show up.
Yeah, you just call the helicopter, and then it says, narrow escape, because that makes sense.
That's how you escape.
It's the only way you can escape from battle.
Yeah.
I would bet money, and I'm glad I can't, but I would, and say that I think that they had an idea of like there's a narrow escape for each, like tailored to each,
right, like, each level or something.
And they're just like, oh crap, we got to get this game on the shelves. Okay, so we'll just do the helicopter animation for everything. All right, we're done.
Are you saying that because you can get it indoors?
Yes, and that's part of the game's charm.
Yeah,
damn it.
I agree.
It continues to be a very, very charming game. It's when you sometimes in the levels it will cut away to like the workers and the machines will be broken, and they'll be like, God damn, the machine's broken again. Just hold on, go and fix it because it's broken. And in the puppet level, you get to the end boss, and they're like, the boss isn't working. You'll just have to go around because it's just broken. And it's like, wow, that's a weird.
It's like going to like Disney World, like the Pirates of the Caribbean breaks while you're in the ride. And they're like. Look, people, we're going to turn the lights on, and everybody's going to have to exit through that door over there.
Yeah,
there's Denise. Follow Denise. That kind of. I mean, the thing about Illbleed that actually I don't remember what I was going to say about it.
There's a lot to say about Illbleed.
Yeah, well, there's a lot, but look. Okay, I remember. Okay, so number one, this is the best Scooby-Doo game that's ever been made. It should have been.
I don't know. Genesis Adventure game was pretty good.
It is pretty good. But it's also kind of like Haunting starring Poltergeist, but in reverse, where you're the person who gets scared. If you played Poltergeist, where you're a ghost who haunts various appliances in a house, trying to scare the crap out of the people who live there. This is kind of like
awful
that.
people.
Yes, it's true. They deserve everything they get, and I'm not dissing Poltergeist.
We already kind of dissed it because we ranked that not very high because it has a lot of issues.
But I like saying the name.
You got to say the full name.
Haunting, starring Poltergeist.
There we go.
Yeah. So where do we want to put this Illbleed? Because it does have Dogsbauer in it, albeit just Dogsbauer's corpse. But you get the impression that Dogs had a great time up until the point he died.
So the thing about Illbleed is I really, really like Illbleed. It's in terms of Dreamcast games, I genuinely think it's one of the best Dreamcast games, and I don't know how you could fight that, especially.
Kind of like the opposite of Shenmue in a way. Like where Shenmue is like the most boring possible thing you can still call a game, even though it's like fun in a way. But Illbleed is bonkers and it makes no sense, and nothing works the way you think it should. And
I think you're comparing the reality of it more than.
Yeah, that's true.
anything.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the gameplay. I'm just saying, like the spirit of the game is the exact opposite. Where
one is trying to recreate reality, and the other one is.
It is a Scooby-Doo episode. Turned into
it's a Scooby-Doo episode with incredible amounts of violence. There is just blood sprays all over this game. There is so much violence.
I think we
in this
all
game.
like Illbleed.
I like Zoid's.
At least all of us who have played
There's a dude named Jorg.
Jorg is exactly what he would say. He would pronounce something Jorg.
Jorg.
I would really challenge someone to sort of experience Illbleed kind of properly and not find it charming, because it is just such a... Everything about this game comes together. It is, the whole sum of its parts. Illbleed is like, this shouldn't work. There is no way this game should fit together. And then it's like, wow, this works.
It's kind of crazy because crazy games didn't learn a thing from Blue
Worth
Stinger.
playing just to experience it.
Because Blue Stinger was marketed as a survival horror, and it kind of is and kind of isn't. And Illbleed really looks like a survival horror, and it's not.
It is a very interesting take on... I think it's the furthest removed you can be from a survival horror game and still technically fall in the genre.
Kind of, yeah. I agree.
There's some... You can... it's interesting. You can get killed in the game, and then you have to play that level again with a different character. If they're dead, you can go back and play a different character to revive them. And so the game has a running money system that you can use to buy things outside of levels, because whatever, that's what they felt they needed to do.
So let's say, all right, what I really want to know is above or below Blue Stinger?
Above. Easy.
Yeah, I'd say above.
Oh my god.
I'll
agree with it.
This is the culmination of not only crazy games, but just kind of the weird hapstance Dreamcast style that... This is one of the most Dreamcast games around. It's up there with Seaman in terms of just...
It kind of is, isn't it?
Just what is this?
I like Blue Stinger and Seaman, and I love all of those weird games.
Yeah, it's such...
Illbleed kind of is a cut above all that stuff, just because it's like, you're never going to get another Illbleed.
No.
Show you that.
Nobody will touch this. It was going to get an Xbox port, so it was so close to maybe becoming a franchise proper, because the game has a sequel hook at the end, but...
Oh, nobody was ever going to... Yeah. No.
Well, we're never going to
Crazy Games has gone the way of the Dogsbauer, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're just gone. They were butchered, and God bless them, though. They are Crazy Games. We salute you. Okay, so it goes above Blue Stinger.
It's going up.
But how far above?
This is gonna be tough because it's I think several people here really like this game, a lot.
3 of us.
Yeah.
At least 3 of us.
It doesn't really matter what I think. So I like the game, but I don't like it better than Blue Stinger.
Well, this game is so Blue Stinger is a survival horror game that's janked up. This is a whole other thing.
It is a whole other thing, but I'm just saying, it's kind of missing that character, a certain...
I don't know. It's got a lot of character to it. It's not the same character, but it's there.
Here's a question. Did Blue Stinger ever have a toy made for it?
those toys are so rare and expensive.
I didn't even know
The
it had
Illbleed toy
toys.
exists.
Yeah, you can get
Illbleed has a toy.
you can get an Erico
Does
toy.
Blue Stinger have a toy?
But if there was any justice in the world, there would be Blue Stinger toys. Like, I would. You realize what I would pay for a Dog's Bower?
You get like a Dog's Bow Figma, and you can pose him in many which ways.
He's made to be a toy. You can change his shirt, and he has different abilities. You know?
I would love to see Sega or someone tackle just like, because Sega like to make toys of their stuff. So I don't know who owns Illbleed at this point.
Sega made like a Smash Brothers with Dog's Bower and a back. Just do it.
For my money, it's somewhere
It's gotta
around.
be below Descent. Like Descent.
I was pushing it higher, but I don't know.
Okay, well,
that's what I was doing, because the thing is, as someone who I love survival horror games. This is a game that is just so far out of the whole genre, and it is completely unique, and it's a really solid game and experience. Like, the worst you can say about this game is that the combat is not very good, and
which it's not.
But you can escape most of the combat. Like, that's pretty much a core mechanic of the game, is just leaving the combat. But it's well, that's what you do. That's
Be a helicopter.
Get the helicopter. It's way more fun to dodge things and get the helicopter. But it's also like, it's got a very fun style and flair to it, which virtually no game matches, in my opinion. Like, just nothing. Even the gameplay itself, the marking things like horror, just ticking things off, trying to actually pay attention to your surroundings, guessing, is that beam gonna scare me? Is that crate? Is it the window? And, every so often you'll make a mistake and it'll be like, whoa, I got scared. Neat. Like,
wow, that's cool. Yeah,
it's like a jump scare simulator that actually
Eternal
works.
Darkness, yeah, that's the obvious comparison. But Eternal Darkness is like a game. It's like it's taking itself pretty seriously.
I'm just saying, if we're going that feeling though.
Yeah, like
I was at. By the way, you guys, I was at E3 2001 where Dennis Dyack himself, Dennis the Hutt, was there. Demoing that game, yeah. Well, this is before we knew he was a douche, and
I know
it was pretty funny. Like you go into like this little tent, and he would just show you the crazy crap that would happen.
Eternal Darkness was pretty crazy crap. It probably a little bit took itself a bit too seriously for what it was. It wanted to do both. Any game that kind of throws up a like, oh, your TV broke, and also wants to be taken as like a serious Lovecraftian game. It's like, oh, I don't know, guys. I think you've
really though. Like what?
I'm gonna break that one and say Metal Gear.
Yeah, I mean it gets there, but like if Illbleed did some of the crap that Eternal Darkness did, it would really be the ultimate.
But if it did that, they couldn't have a patent on those mechanics. That's why you haven't seen it.
If it did the stuff with like the erasing your save and all that, and like having like the bug on the screen and stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really could have gotten a lot crazier.
Comes in places. It comes very close to that, since a lot of the levels mix things up a bit. Some levels you lose money. Some levels things are a little bit of a twist. Sometimes you control enemies. There's a lot of stuff that this game does. Okay, so
all right, so
I'm sitting this.
I'm the only person who's ever. Yeah, suggested. So I'm done. That was my suggestion. What do you guys think? Ranking.
I'm okay with Below Descent.
I'll work with that.
Well,
yay, and we're done. Doesn't matter what you think.
I know. I don't want people to listen to what I think, because I'm just going to keep pushing it up. I love Illbleed. I'm going to be like, ooh, Illbleed or Final Fantasy VII? Up it goes.
I'm watching Bob.
I don't even like Descent that much, but I know a lot of people who like Descent, and I.
Illbleed, Metroid, Illbleed. I just keep going. But no, like, Illbleed is a game that's probably not for everyone. It's a little too weird for some people's tastes, so I can dig it.
Crazy, and if you like survival horror and you feel like you've seen it all, give it a chance.
Or, there's lots of people that probably have a Dreamcast. If you haven't played Illbleed and you have a Dreamcast, there is something fundamentally wrong with your priorities.
Even if you're not into survival horror, you might like this game, because it has, at the very least, a great sense of humor. It knows it is super dumb, and it loves it.
Well, you can rescue a character and not give him his brain back. There's no game you can do that. And he remains like...
afterwards.
Yeah, like, for the rest of the game, you can play as this guy when he has no brain. And nobody notices or cares. And I think all of his dialogue from that point on is just like grunts or moans or something. Like, what kind of game is that? It's Illbleed.
That's all for this episode of HardcoreGaming101.net's Top Games Podcast. Special thanks goes out to @CoolNewDad, @Chunderfins, @TheChaos, and @Mr. Frost XD on iTunes for nominating those fantastic games. Thanks as well to those of you we haven't got to yet. We will be getting to you soon. And thanks to my lovely co-hosts and compatriots and our editor, Jeff Rude, and our chiptune composer, Miteki, and of course, the support and feedback of listeners like you. You can support this podcast by making a small monthly donation at patreon.com/HG101. I know I did. And you can help us out by subscribing to the HG101 YouTube channel, by liking our videos and commenting and saying how great we are at playing the games. And but most
I'm awesome.
You're awesome. we have to play every game we rank, and it's usually Bob who does it, and he does a pretty damn good job. But most importantly, help us claw our way into the podcasting firmament by getting on iTunes, subscribing to HG101, and giving us a 5-star review. Remember, include a game in that 5-star review, and we will play it, rank it, and mention you by name and stroke that sweet, sweet ego right where it counts. Do it, or we'll lock Rio in a room with a mini fridge, a master system, and a 2-legged puppy named Scoots. Until next week, keep keeping it real.